Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Jamaica PowerBI User Group. And I'm so happy to have everyone join us online. We have an amazing lineup today. And if you guys signed up, then just get ready to have to learn about Power Automate, to learn about PowerApps, to learn about SharePoint. And we have some amazing speakers lined up for you guys today. So just a quick overview of the agenda. We have Anthony Escobedo doing Power Platform 101, and he's going to do a quick run through so that you guys can have an understanding of Power Platform and you guys can learn something new. If you have no idea what to do, perfect for you. If you're already in the environment, then you can always learn something new as well. Then we have Anton Robbins doing PowerApps 101. And then we have Mercerise Duvan or Duke Duvan doing SharePoint and Power Automate 101. So this is a great lineup, very excited. And just to do a quick overview, if you guys are not familiar with the Jamaica PowerBI User Group, this is your leadership team. This is me, myself here, Raquel Seville, kicking things off. We have Jermaine McDonald, who is backstage and will be helping to do some questions and helping to ensure that everything runs smooth today. And we also have Jody Gabidon as part of the leadership team for Power BI Jamaica. So the reason that we're doing all of this, you may be wondering why we're having these free events, why we're having all these community meetup. We actually want to build a data culture in Jamaica and also the wider Caribbean. And if you guys are a part of the Caribbean Power BI meeting, then that was planned and brought to you by the different groups in the Caribbean, from Jamaica, from Trinidad, from Curacao. And, you know, we're very, very much interested in ensuring that we build a strong data culture here and to get persons not just using Power BI, but also using the suite of apps that are available from Microsoft. Of course, we also want to teach, which is really and truly what this one is about, which I'm very excited about today, that you guys get to learn about Power Apps, about Power Automate, about SharePoint, all these different things, so that you guys can extract value from data and from the existing software that you have and investment that you have with Microsoft. Also for you to share tips and tricks and best practices. I'm sure you guys will learn a lot of that today as well. And of course, to make AI and automation accessible to all, which is very, very much a big part of having Power Apps and SharePoint and everything. So how do you join? If you're curious, how do you guys get involved in Jamaica Power BI User Group? You can find us here at pbiusergroup.com/Jamaica. You guys can join the community online. You can hear about any upcoming events. You can also find us on LinkedIn, and you guys can become a part of the community. So just look for us on LinkedIn, Jamaica Power BI User Group. As I said before, you guys can scan this QR code that you're seeing on stage on your screen, and you can become a part of the user group, and you can get all the updates and everything. So the first thing that we're gonna do is hand right over to our first guest, which is Anthony Escobedo, and he is ready to get going. And I'm very, very much excited to add Anthony. Hi, Anthony, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here and talk through the Power Platform. And I know that we're, Power BI is a part of that, but we got a couple extra products we want to talk about today.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thanks so much, Anthony. Happy to have you. And we have Anton backstage and Dew backstage waiting to go. Everybody's ready to go. So Anthony, I'll hand over to you.
Okay.
So that you can share your slides and get it going.
Sounds good. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Looks like I can see my screen here. So we'll kick it off. I run the Milwaukee Power Platform User Group that's in Wisconsin in the United States. So today I'm bringing myself, but also, the people that I've reached out to and let them know that I'm also, presenting here. It's just really good to see these groups come together, especially as you guys are, you guys work in Power BI all the time. That's not my specialty. So it's great to learn from you guys, and I'm happy to hear to show you guys a little bit about Power Apps and Power Automate and the other sides of the Power Platform there. So let's kick it off. All right, so I'm going to go to the next screen here. We'll talk through the agenda. So first, we'll do some quick introductions. That'll be through myself and the other speakers. And then we switched up the topics a little bit. I'll be doing the PowerApps overview. Anton's going to do Power Automate overview. And then at the end, we'll do a demo where Jermaine's going to be, or Duke is going to be doing the demo and solution review. At the end, we'll leave some time for Q&A. Just to give you guys the inside scoop, again, I'm a part of the Milwaukee Power Platform User Group. You can scan that QR code, or you can, type in the URL there, and that'll bring you over to the user group that I run. And we do an event once a month, and we have one coming up on Monday. So we're always keeping busy, and a lot of times it has to do with PowerApps. Actually, the co-leader is actually in Power BI, so he does a lot of Power BI stuff. He brings people from the Power BI world in, and so it's a good balance. So I think that you guys would find that interesting. All right. And a little bit about myself. So again, my name is Anthony Escobedo, part of the Milwaukee Power Platform, also on the Wisconsin SharePoint User Group. So that's just a couple things that tie really close together. I started in SharePoint, and then I moved over to the Power Platform. The Power Platform's only been around, well, I guess the unique pieces of that. Power BI has been around for a while, but PowerApps and Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, those ones have only been around for so long. So getting myself inundated with that, and then also my community and helping bring that information to them. I'm a technical architect at Concurrency, so really just helping craft these solutions and things for clients. I've been in technology for 8 years, and I've been a consultant for 5. So I do love to travel. I've been to lots of parts of the world, but not to Jamaica, and that is one thing that I would love to go at some point. So maybe sometime I'll see you guys in the future. Here's the LinkedIn handle and the Twitter handle, and then my personal website where I'll do blogging. So I use all of them a little bit differently. Personally, I tweet more than I do anything else. But if I'm really excited about something, it'll land on LinkedIn. If I'm super duper excited, it'll land in my website. So that's where you can kind of catch all of those different things. But I'm excited to be here, and then I'm going to share Anton's bio. Anton, if you're ready here.
Cool. Hey, so yeah, that's me, Anton Robbins. I started to wear that tie today, but I figured I'd go with someone blue. Anyway, so Anton Robbins, Anthony and I hail from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. As right now, I am in DC, right outside DC, in Northern Virginia. I'm still coming to a baby MVP. I just made MVP a few years ago. Still learning and still trying to help others. As I'm also a power addict. I don't know if you guys have heard it before, but there's a hashtag on Twitter. And that hashtag is power addict. So as you start your journey through the Power Platform, may that be PowerApps or a Power Automate or a Power BI. If you get stuck, use that hashtag, and there's always someone there to help out. And at the end of the day, as I talk about my bow ties, I'm a bow tie slayer. I love bow ties. I think I've purchased more bow ties than I've gotten apps built. So it's one of my favorite things. And as I spoke of earlier, I am from Wisconsin. I have or help with multiple user groups across the country. I help with 2 here, SugDC, which is a SharePoint based user group, as well as we have a DC PowerApps, Power Automate user group as well. So we're always busy providing help or bringing new ideas that are coming to the table from Microsoft. There's so many things coming so fast. It's hard to keep your eye on everything, but we do our best to do that as well. You can find me on Twitter. I'm usually active on Twitter. If I find an issue, and I've got a workaround for it, I'm going to drop it into Twitter. Or if someone has a great article, I'm gonna be there to promote it. So feel free to find me, as well as there's my LinkedIn there. And I think we're going to move to Duke.
Sure.
If he's ready.
Yeah. Hey, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, sorry. So hi, I'm Duke, Divine, or Marsharice. Duke is a lot easier for a lot of people, so I go by Duke just to make it easier and not have awkward meetings or awkward conversations with people trying to pronounce my name. This past year, I started my own company, got my LLC and everything. During this pandemic, it kind of exacerbated the need for me to do that, to start branching on my own, because I believe in the product. I started with PowerApps, SharePoint, and then the Power Platform a little over a year ago, and I just, became fascinated with what it could do. I saw that it's a growing and emerging technology. A lot of people are starting to get into it. A lot of people don't know about it, and so there was a gap, or a gap that I identified that I felt I could fill by starting my own company and still working at. I'm a technical analyst at Perlick here in Milwaukee. That's where I got my start. Started in the factory, went to school full time, and then they brought me onto the IT team. And so I have a extensive background in a lot of different business processes, different business scenarios and cases. And down there, I put no weight is too heavy because I lift a lot of weights at the gym. I mean, that's what I do to de-stress. Although this is a interesting and a fun platform to work on, there can be some stress with the long hours and the constant learning. There's a lot to learn, and they're always rolling out new functions, new features, and you got to stay abreast on those things in order to swim with the sharks in this ocean here. So you can find me on LinkedIn at Marsharice Devan, on Twitter at AyoSharice, and then you could email me at marsharice@devanunlimitedllc.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Duke.
Yeah.
So I'll kick it off with, I kind of like to lay the groundwork here on what we're going to talk about, and what the different apps do and how they play well with each other. So that's where the Microsoft Power Platform comes in handy here, where we lay out a screen like this, where PowerApps, we're going to be working with the data. We're not storing data there. We're not basically data is going to be funneling through that. You're going to be able to create, read, update, delete type of data in there. You're going to be able to transform the data up front. But ultimately, PowerApps is going to be that front end where you're going to be, mostly interacting with, let's say an application that you would build, or maybe you'd even use just a template that Microsoft provides. But that's, going to be, it's really fancy because it's the thing that you build and that people get to work with. But then you have Power Automate, where it's still very fancy, but you're not, it's not hands-on and you're not working with it every day. It's something that's going to, you set it up and you run it in the background, and it just takes care of business for you. So the difference there is, you're either hands-on and working with something and you're punching data in or changing data or updating statuses, things like that. And PowerApps, that's where you're going to be, interactive with it. Power Automate, a lot of times, you're just going to, fix it the way that you need it to be. You're going to automate certain things to happen, and then it can run. There's, we'll dive into, both of those at different levels during this conversation, but I wanted to kind of level set there that, the key differences there. Obviously, you guys are familiar with Power BI and how that fits in, with the Power Platform and, its space, but, there's a lot that you can do with Power Automate and Power Apps with Power BI. So we won't necessarily dive into deep with that. We're going to kind of keep it at a 100-ish type level today, but certainly willing to, expand on that at any point. So if you guys have questions, feel free to bring those up. Power Virtual Agents, the newest member of the Power Platform Club here, basically just democratizing the way that you would build a chatbot, and that it's PowerPoint easy when you're building, a way that you build a chatbot. It's, you have a topic, you have some question answers, and they lead you to specific answers. And it doesn't get much easier than the way that Microsoft has built Power Virtual Agents. It's got a back-end framework that you can really dive in there and get into the details and maybe custom codes and things, but that's not everybody's need. So Power Virtual Agents, again, we won't dive into that too much right now. We're going to focus more on Power Apps and Power Automate, but Power Virtual Agents is really powerful. And actually, one quick tip on that I just recently learned and I didn't know previously, was that there's actually, as long as you're using it with Dataverse, which is there on the bottom left, you're using it, Dataverse for Teams, that it's free to use internally. Power Virtual Agents, in other words, when you use it internally and you're using Dataverse with Teams, it's a free chatbot that you can use, to answer HR questions and, point somebody in the right direction for the right, project manager or something like that. So just really exciting that, all of these tools are out and they're really well integrated with each other. So to piggyback off of that, we have Dataverse. That's going to be, the Power Platform's backend, homegrown data source where all of these tools connect really, really, really well with Dataverse. It's very similar to, like let's say a SQL database or these other things, but just imagine this, basically a database on steroids to handle all your security needs, to manage it from an enterprise level. That's why Dataverse is so powerful. We also have data connectors that all of these different beautiful products share, and then the AI build that we're all excited about. That keep building new AI builder platforms for us, and I'll talk a little bit about that during my session. But there we have laid the groundwork, and let's move on to the PowerApps overview. All right, so PowerApps, how do we start? So this is where, when somebody doesn't really, you've heard of this, it sounds great, but at what point do we start to build something, or when do we build it? Things like that, where it's really, it's something that's free, that's already out there. So you can either get a trial license, a developer license. Those are different types of ways that you can kind of, get your hands dirty without having to worry about, your company's data and things like that. This is something that you can kind of start on your own, just to kind of, make and break things. But if you're going to be working in your environment at your organization, you'll have to have a PowerApps license, and there's free licenses that can be applied, or there's the premium license. So there is a little bit of a balance on when you would need either or. But you start ultimately in the web, or there is the desktop app and the phone app where you can start building as well. So a lot of different places you ultimately can start. But when you're building these types of apps, you're going to think about the data source. So a lot of times you can either start with building the front end, which would be more of the PowerApps, and how you would see that data and then build that back end into it. Or you would start with, the back end where you already have your data, maybe your tables and your relationships and all those types of things hooked up already, and then you just lay, your PowerApps right over it to interact with that data. There's really no right or wrong way to necessarily start. However, I know that a lot of the data heads or the PowerApps, crew, we would typically say start with data first, and then, kind of, throw something over that. But it totally depends. Everybody's, has a personal preference, and there's no truly right or wrong way of certainly doing that. So that's how you would ultimately, open up and either start with a blank canvas or start from a template. And Microsoft provides, a couple different ways to start using, PowerApps. So with that, you have a screen and you're throwing some of these core components on there, whether it's a drop down or you're typing in, an input text, there's different ways that you would interact with the data, but ultimately it needs to go somewhere. And that's when you're going to use a connector. That's how the connectors basically will say, you're going to go out to this data source and grab information, or maybe you're going to store information. It's really that two-way trust that you're creating with the connectors. So there's about 417, I think it is, for PowerApps now. So it's gotten up quite a bit. In October, there were 20 connectors or so that were added over time, and it got up to 400. So it's really exciting to see. We just started a couple years ago now with PowerApps, and now we're already up to 400. And just to I guess to take a trip down memory lane, I think we started with under 100 at first, and it was pretty tough to do what we wanted to do. But now that there's so many connectors, it's out there. They're easy to use. It's actually just really, you click on it. If you need special credentials, you'll type those in, and then it just works. It allows you to connect to that data source with those credentials, and you only you only have the permissions that those credentials have. So let's say you give somebody access to a SQL database via credentials. They could log in, and they would only be able to do what they're able to do with those specific credentials. Even if they logged in right to the SQL database, they would be able to, let's say, create and view. They wouldn't be able to delete rows or records. That's a way that even in PowerApps, it wouldn't allow them, because they're in PowerApps, to do anything outside of those specific permissions that you give them. It just lives within, you know, what you give them as those permissions. So exciting stuff, and then they're really simple to use. Outside of that, we have the AI and intelligence, where you have pre-built models and custom models. I think there's like 4 or so pre-built models and 2 custom models for PowerApps. They have some extra ones over in the Power Automate space, but they've built these, you know, pretty good. You know, I've actually built a phone app where I took a picture of a barcode scanner, and you would scan like 10 different barcodes at one time. It was for a packaging organization. They would scan the barcodes in different areas, and it would keep going to the next barcode, keep going to the next barcode. And let's say that, you know, we ran into an issue where it wasn't able to read it very well. I could also use the camera, which then would use this AI / you know, the intelligence through PowerApps, where it would actually read the barcode itself and then grab the numbers in the bottom, and it would analyze the text, and then it would pull in the text for me, because let's say the barcode got ripped in half and I could only read the numbers. That was another way of scanning each of those barcodes. Just the barcode scanner built into PowerApps works a little bit easier, but you know, the AI pre-built, you know, function that way, it has a little bit of an extra price tag, but it's actually pretty affordable. So it's some extra, you know, kind of fun that I ran into when it comes to experiences. But then outside of that, we also have the enterprise grade governance and security controls. Really what that means is, you know, PowerApps lives within the Office 365 space. So you're going to control that just like anything else. So imagine a SharePoint site, or, you know, your Power BI reports, and you share something out. This is a way that you can put those very similar guardrails on, let's say, a Power App, or you know, an environment in which that Power App would live in. You're only allowing certain people to do certain things, you know, or even with certain connectors. So you don't want people to connect to, let's say, Azure or Google or whatever it is, and have those connect to each other. You can stop them from doing that through the enterprise grade governance. So just kind of a heads up that it's really powerful, and it's grown quite a bit, and we'll talk about, you know, some of that growth here at the end of the presentation. At the end of the day, though, you can start with being a no-code, low-code type of developer all the way to pro dev, and there's really no limits. It's not technically. Most people ask, like, how long will it take to do this? I'll say, well, how long will you give me? Because a lot of things can get done really quick. The speed of which you can build a Power App from, you know, nothing to maybe a proof of concept is very quick. It's in the fine details, probably just like the reports that you guys build that take a little bit of time, but that's when, you know, you're able to then tweak it exactly to where, you know, that specific organization or client or you know, team member would need it to be. So being able to flex, you know, and meet all the needs is possible. It just depends on how long you got to meet those needs. So here's a few examples on why you would use PowerApps. If you're going to be extending Office 365, so you're in Microsoft Teams, or you're in Dynamics 365, or you're using I don't know, you're a lot of Excel documents, right? You can actually store information from PowerApps in Excel. So if you're, you know, creating interactions that way, it's not necessarily best, not that it's not best practice, but you don't want to use Excel as a database, but it's possible to connect to it as a data source and be able to either grab information from it or store in it. So that's a possibility. But also being able to extend legacy applications. So you have an old ERP system, or you have you know, any really old system. You see a lot of these kind of older systems in financial companies. You know, working with a couple of them myself. You know, they have old legacy systems. They have the database. You can either build a custom connector to specifically connect to that if there's not an API available, or you can you know, use one of the connectors that are available and be able to interact with that data in a different way that they can today. So maybe, you know, they have this full streamlined process from start to finish, and it does what they need, but they need a certain persona or group of people to you know, view something at a certain time, or you know, review, you know, invoices or things like that, where they can really just grab onto that information at a pinpointed time or serve a certain need. That's where PowerApps can really insert itself, look at that data, and then allow you to modify it or update or add to it, whatever you would need there. So again, back to the building departmental solutions. This is something that I think it's probably most strong in. I would say, when it comes to anything, Power Platform and making it a tool that any end user can really use. I think that's where it becomes the most powerful. It's for those citizen developers. They can build their own interdepartmental solutions, or maybe it's just between me and one other person. We work a lot together, and there's a lot of tasks being handed back and forth. We can build a Power App to streamline that and create statuses and really ultimately track the information that we're doing. So if my manager says, hey, what have you been up to lately? And you're focused on this, passing these tasks back and forth or keeping track of certain things, creating dashboards in Power Apps can be really helpful. Also, then building mission critical end-to-end solutions. That's going to be more of your enterprise apps. It also does a really great job of that. That's where something like the Center of Excellence would come in handy, where just like you guys in Power BI, you have your own Center of Excellence. There's also a Center of Excellence that kind of handles more of the other side of Power Platform, when it comes to Power Apps, Power Automate, and things of that nature. So making sure that you have these end-to-end solutions, but involving the right people, so that if it goes down, that you have the support that's needed. But not that it doesn't really ever go down, but if you're making updates, I suppose, and you break something and need to revert, or you need maybe a technical person on hand, that's where you can see in the image here. Actually, I'll scroll in there. You have a couple different versions. You have your Power BI, kind of reports here that are interacting with a model-driven app. So model-driven apps is something that's driven by data. I'll show you some examples here in a moment, but on the back end, it walks somebody through a process. So think of sales and marketing. And then over here on the left, it looks like another Power App where it's mobile capable versus, that's going to be the desktop app that we're seeing in the middle. So a couple different versions that we're seeing there in that example. All right. You just take a look at this. All right. So as far as enabling digital transformation across an organization when it comes to solutions and security, PowerApps does it all. It's hard to say what it can't do, because I've not only witnessed, let's say like an analyst, somebody that doesn't even work with PowerApps or work on coding anything. It's people that can just see a process, either it's nailed down and they have it in a flow diagram, or whatever the case is. It's people that are just willing to learn the tool that can really take it to that next level. And that's when Anton talks about like the power addicts. They get into a spot where they can't take it any further and they have questions. You reach out to on Twitter and say, hey, I'm having this problem. Take some pictures or screenshots and say what the issues that you're running into. Those people from the community will come back and help you solve that problem. So it's really great to just from a community standpoint, people have your back. There's people like Duke, and Anton, where they help people bring these out and take it to that next level. Myself included. It's really excited to just see how far we can bring Power Apps. It definitely has its limitations, and we'll talk. That's what we'll see, I think, a little bit later. But where building these solutions not only for yourself but for other people, I think once you become a master of Power Apps or Power BI, you get brought into this next level where they see that you can do that, and then it's kind of like this snowball effect where you're going to need more of them, because automating something or streamlining, or just even making it visible to other people in the company, where you're able to, let's say you're intaking invoices really quickly and you're able to scan the information, get it in the right spots based on logic. Power Apps can help you validate that information. You can, maybe once you're going through approvals, you could have a Power App that says, hey, this document's ready for approval. Please view it here. And it'll walk you step by step and show you all of that information, really simple. And it's an exciting time for the Power Platform. Let's get to the next screen here. So some of the new things that are happening with Power Apps. So mixed reality. So you can see here that, you know, you're using PowerApps on your phone or on your tablet, and you're literally using the camera and you're able to measure things, kind of like on your iPhone. But now imagine you're a contractor and you're going to a house and you're looking at, you know, building, someone's asking if they can have this wall demoed and you want to take pictures of it. Imagine storing that directly to your OneDrive with a specific folder name because you're in a specific location. Things like that where PowerApps can bring that to the next level. What you're seeing here on the left, you know, imagine if you just built a warehouse and you want to make sure that something can fit in there. That's what that's showing, is that you can use, you know, mixed reality to literally put something on the screen. So my wife, again, she works at Miller Coors. If they have a display where they want to use the space right at, you know, let's say, you know, a grocery store, and they want to use the space to store a specific number of cans on the shelf, they could pull that up on their phone, as long as that's already integrated and they took a picture of it previously and, you know, kind of set this up. They deploy out hundreds of these people to go, you know, make sure that they have space on the shelves for these, you know, these displays. That's how you're going to be able to do that without actually investing a lot of time and, you know, potentially wasting time. So you're going to be able to streamline some of these processes just because this mixed reality is out there and it's, you know, in somebody's hand where they can directly store that to pretty much anything in Office 365 at little to no cost. So it's exciting to you know, see them take that to the next level. Again, that's a newer functionality. It's not going to be perfect, but it is really awesome. On the back end here, you can see, you know, somebody building, you know, what it is that they would be showing on a tablet version of this app. So again, it's on, you know, they're really expanding on those capabilities of mixed reality and taking that to the next level. I would say that my favorite one is the integration with Microsoft Teams. They've taken this to the next level and beyond in the last, I don't know, few months, especially since Ignite in October, or I guess it's September. But in either case, taking that to the next level where they renamed, you know, Common Data Service to Dataverse. So, you know, that's great. But now they've built Dataverse for Teams, where now you're able to take advantage of, you know, actual tables inside of Microsoft Teams that can expand to a crazy amount. I don't even know if I've heard a limitation on it yet, but I'm sure there is one. But being able to store that information within Teams, being able to build apps within Teams and connect those two together, almost to like a limitless extensibility. It's really exciting to see. Also, they came out with, you know, different responsive type templates. This one you're seeing here is a little bit older of a fashion, where they do actually have some newer versions of the more responsive templates, but you know, all heading in the right direction. It's those features that are always coming out, and it's like Duke said earlier, sometimes it's hard to keep up when it's really exciting to see. So there's that, and then also the mobile app. You know, now they have model-driven apps and Canvas apps. You know, they have these two types of apps that used to have their own, you know, app that would be out there for iOS and Android. But now they've brought those together, and it's, you know, it's a similar experience for you know, an end user that would have to download that, and it's less management on the back end too. So if you're endpoint management and things like that, where they can only log in if they're, you know, sign over their limbs at some point, yeah, that's when you're going to be able to you know, secure that from a security endpoint. So a lot of great things that are happening, and here's just a highlight of, you know, a few of the new capabilities. So building in Teams again is by far my favorite, and we'll look into some of these use cases here now. So integrated with Office 365. So let's just look over some of these. So you can publish apps as a SharePoint web part. You know, when it comes to your intranet, if you're going to be taking, you know, if you're taking a poll and you want to get information back and then do specific things with that information, if you're not using Microsoft Forms, it takes more logic than, you know, what that can offer. Building a Power App and then embedding that on a page. So it's really simple to do that. They have a web part for that. Same thing with the SharePoint list and document library experience. You can now customize, you know, just like you were able to back in Classic Experience with InfoPath. Now you can, you know, take that to the next level with PowerApps. Again, it's almost limitless, and having that, you know, within your SharePoint list or document library. If someone has access to that list, then they're going to have access to that Power App. So it makes it that permission and kind of that whole like back-end nightmare where you have to manage those things separately, kind of takes that away, which is really nice. You're able to just take advantage of SharePoint and inherit some of that guidance that SharePoint. It's been around forever, so just knowing that you have that framework to bounce it off of is really good. Build a Power App, from an Excel sheet on OneDrive. That's what I mentioned earlier. Again, not my favorite example, but it's something that's possible. Kind of gets people started. Recently, when I was doing a coaching session with somebody, I said, hey, spin a Power App. Let's talk through, your example. And he had, this whole thing planned out. And I didn't expect it because we talked about, using, more of the SharePoint lists and things of that nature to store data. But it ended up, he used an Excel spreadsheet. So it was exciting to kind of see somebody else just do something new. Again, Microsoft Teams, we're familiar with that. And then using Dataverse for Teams and building Power Apps and being able to build those databases and tables within Microsoft Teams, never having to leave Teams when you're building a Power App or using Dataverse. It's exciting, and I think those are my favorite ones here. Otherwise, this picture here, you can just kind of see what the editor looks like, where you're able to see, on the right, there's some configurations you can take advantage of. Here's some layouts, and I think that would be, we could dive into that whole entire session for hours, but I'll just keep it at the high level there. A couple more. This is going to be more on the Dynamics 365 side, so we don't have to spend a ton of information or a ton of time on this. But again, when it comes to working with Dynamics 365 and Power Apps, it's going to be, you're typically using more of the model-driven apps. You can still interact with the data with Canvas apps, but the way that you do that is a lot different. Model-driven apps is you bring in the information that is stored on that data source, and that's how that app is actually pre-built based off that data when you connect it. Versus Canvas apps, you start with a blank canvas. That's why it's called Canvas. So kind of two different approaches, and you can tackle a lot of the same problems. But I guess just keeping you guys in the know that there's a ton of different Dynamics 365 stuff that's out there. You can really use that data and drive that forward. So benefits of the low-code development, to kind of wrap that up: increased development agility. I have a whole deck on being able to start from nothing to getting to, basically your POC to then your MVP and the steps in between. You can do that really quickly. It's exciting because you can do that and walk. You can basically show somebody that whole entire process from milestone to milestone. And the good thing about Power Apps is once you do something, when you share it with them, they're able to see you take that from nothing to something, and it looks beautiful really quickly. Again, speed and savings. If you're not, I guess, either way, whether you're using a premium connector or not, you can streamline some serious business processes. And being able to do that, you can save a ton of your money for yourself. And if let's say you're streamlining stuff at home, you could do that. Or if you're in your organization, you can be able to save a lot of money. Instead of going out and buying products, you can then build it in-house and have the advantage of being able to customize that to what you need. And then the efficiency. Everything is always being updated. It's always being, there's new features coming out. So they're always increasing how fast you can build things. And at the bottom here, you're going to see that 65% of all app dev is going to be not necessarily taken over completely by low code, but by 2024, they're expecting that there's going to be quite a bit of an overhaul there, where the low code, no code type of app dev is going to be, making its way in there. So I have just a couple minutes left, and I will leave you guys with a couple of the updates that I had spoken about earlier. I'll showcase a few of those real quick. So building Power Apps in Microsoft Teams. Again, that's one of the most exciting pieces for me about this, is being able to bring that to somebody and then never having to leave Teams. Just being a big advocate of Teams. This is great to see. You can also, let's just scroll in here for a second. You can see that they have a couple different templates that they have that are out there, and they work really great. And there's a lot of people putting a lot of information to customizing those as well. So you start somewhere with one of these templates, and then you bring it into your organization, but you can customize it to meet your needs in between there. Again, you just click that create an app, and then you're able to start something up right away and get that all created within Microsoft Teams. And you can do that in the browser or in the actual app itself. So again, using those templates, and then also just the simplified version of Dataverse within Teams. Again, having that database in there, taking advantage of that, you're able to get really far really fast. Being able to be very agile and build tables and relationships all with inside teams. And you can see kind of a little GIF here that I have when they're creating something and adding in a new record. So you can see how that can happen. This is kind of in the fast mode. I don't work that fast. I wish I did, but you can see how fast that is to work with Dataverse and then use that Power App and continue creating there. So that's one of the templates that you can see out there. Feel free to open up your teams and start one. There's no bad place to start. There's a couple more updates, but we won't go over those. Those ones were more, I would say, on the dev side. So in other words, there's like the citizen developer, and then there's the pro dev, focusing on more of the citizen developer here today. So very quickly, it was called CDS, then it was called DataFlex, and then it was called Project Oakdale, and now it's finally landed at a spot where it's called Dataverse. So exciting stuff. DLP policy changes, that's more of the governance side of Power Platform. And then there's major updates to the COE. That's going to be a whole package in itself, supported by Microsoft, created by the community. And that's something that I would love to dive into with you guys. It has a bunch of awesome Power BI reports. Responsive Power App containers, we showed a little bit of that earlier. And then a couple of these other ones here are just great to know or great to have. But ultimately, just really excited to be here today and had shared a little bit of information with you guys on PowerApps. And if you guys were interested, I do, like I said, there's a couple examples in our Milwaukee Power Platform User Group. That's our YouTube channel here if you want to scan that or write that URL in, just making it simple so that you guys can get out there and see some of the solutions that we had put out. And I think the most recent event that we did had to do with creating version control on Power BI reports. So that one's actually out there and ready for you guys to view. And with that, I will pass the wand over to Anton.
Oh, we had a question for you, Anthony, in the chat.
Okay.
Before we move to Anton. So there's a question that Anton says he will answer in his presentation from Denver. And there's another one from Jonathan Sadler. Hi, Jonathan. Hi, Denver. I think I know both of you. So then Jonathan says, I'm currently studying to get my Microsoft Data Analyst Associate certification. When working in Excel, are there limits to the amount of rows or records that Power BI, and what is the front facing PWA or .apk?
So I would say, from a Power Apps perspective, there's a couple limitations that you run into. There's initially the default setting for Power Apps is going to be 500 records, but you can up that to 2,000 records. So before you filter that information in, before you would grab that information with Power Apps, you're going to need to do some filtering to make sure that you're at least under 2,000. The more filtering you can do that is not inside the application, that's on the back end, the faster that Power App is going to run. It can handle up to 2,000, no problem. It goes just as fast. But just keeping that in mind that there is that limitation. That's a good question.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we'll hand over to Anton, and Anton, you can answer Denver's question, which was around training for SharePoint. I think training and certification for SharePoint or the entire Power Platform.
Yep. So part of my demo or my slides, I'm going to show some links. So part of those links will show some of the free training that Microsoft provides. So from a Power Apps to a Power Automate, or the full Power Platform itself, there's pretty comprehensive training. If you want to look a little deeper into training, it's definitely Anthony, myself, or Duke will be here, who can kind of talk to you later and grab some information from me and see what we can do.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So over to you, Anton. Thank you so much. Thanks, Anthony. Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
All right. And guys, remember to keep posting your questions in the chat.
Okie dokie. Let me go ahead and start to share my screen before I even get started. Thank you all for to the Jamaica team for inviting us to speak to your users. I'm a big user group person, so I know how important it is. And without user group, there would not be a me. So I was kind of trained and worked through UG. So thank you so much for that. I am trying to get to my slides here and share my screen out and share. Cool. I'm sorry, there we go. All right, so can you guys tell me if you can see the opening screen? Opening screen here would be a welcome screen. Oh, I can't even see the other side. I need to fix this. Anyway, so thank you all again for hanging out with us this evening. And today I want to talk about Microsoft Power Automation 101. This has been an amazing tool that I've used for the last 3 years. And I just kind of segue into it from working with SharePoint for such a while. So begins just the agenda. Myself is going to do a quick introduction. And this is going to be a very demo heavy conversation. I'm definitely going to walk through a lot of things that's available within the studio. And within that, I'm going to give my rules of engagement. This: how do you get started? What do you do? Number 2, I'll talk about, just give a quick overview of the Power Automate Studio again, and then I'm going to break down Flow itself. And Flow is so simple. And then we're going to talk a bit about building your first flow. So we'll get there. Got my little clicker here. And so as I said earlier before, hey, that's me again. So yes, I am a Microsoft Business Applications MVP, and that just means that I'm just a part of a group of it's like a discipline within the MVPs. There's Azure MVPs and there's Windows MVPs, all kind of MVPs, but I kind of fit into this bucket. I won't go through this again, but this is me. If you ever have any questions or want to look me up, this is how you'll find me. All right, so let's start to walk into the Power Platform. And Anthony did an amazing job of explaining the Power Platform itself. It is exploding, and it's really, it's kind of, it's kind of leveling the playing field for those users who are tech savvy, but never had the time to really jump into a C# or a .NET. I consider the Microsoft Power Platform as development on training wheels, because all the things that we will talk about or you'll see here, and I'm gonna mention, are things that your more traditional developers are doing, but Microsoft is giving you those safe rails to learn. And for me, the big thing I'm gonna talk about again is going to be Power Automate. Now, my rules of engagement, and these are some things that I did when I first started, and it helped me progress. And when I tell you, you can go from 0 to hero in like 2.5 seconds, or as Biggie would say, you can go from ashy to classy in such a short time. And this is how you get there. The first thing is build. You can go to all the sessions, and you can talk to some of the most esteemed builders out here. But if you're not building any apps or building any flows, you know, it's not going to be the same. You're going to be able to touch and see and find those small nuances and find the workarounds. I mean, right now, you know, the platform is fairly young. We've been, I say we because it's a part of me. We've been GA, at least PowerApps has been GA since October 31st of 2-3 years ago. So 3 years old. So it's just moving and moving. So build. You're gonna go in one day and find something that you don't know that was even there the day before. So do that. As well as you build, share your experiences. Let people know, you know, good and bad. The one thing that I've learned over my time building apps and building building flows, let's say called PowerApps flow. Yeah. So building flows is the fact of some things that work perfect for you, someone's having a hard time trying to figure it out. So if you can share your experience, you're going to help someone. As well as if you're stuck, right? If you're stuck, share that experience of being stuck, because I guarantee you what you're stuck on, someone else was stuck on before and found the workaround. And the community is so amazing that it's just people just pour out information. I've been in a few other communities, and I've never been in a community where I felt like everyone's there to help me. Please share your experiences. And again, number 3 is just help others. The more you can come out and the more you kind of talk to people and have those conversations, you're going to help them out. So I would say those are the 3 things that I think everyone should do just to kind of, keep yourself moving, right? And here, as I mentioned earlier, these are some of my, this is something I just kind of added in, but it talks back to what Denver was kind of asking about. Microsoft Flow Learn. There are, here's the URL here at the bottom, but the Microsoft Learn Academy right now, not right now, they've been doing a great job, but they've really poured a lot of information into teaching people how to use Power Automate, as well as PowerApps. And there's also one for, I believe it's one for SharePoint as well. But here's the URL underneath it. So this is a good place to go. I tell everyone, if you're thinking about getting started, this is one of the places that you want to go first and start your journey. And this is one I use every day. I still use the Microsoft Power Automate documentation link. Like Anthony said earlier, things change, things move. And Microsoft has been really good with providing really good documentation out there so that we can, find what's new or what's been updated. So this is a good link to use. And they've been pretty smart about how they set it up. So it's set up and if you're a novice, if you're intermediate, and then if you're advanced, it's something there for everyone. The one thing that I like about, or at least about, the Power Platform right now, is that the playing field is pretty much level, right? Since it's so new, when I hear those words of guru and those things like that, it makes me nervous because they change things so fast. I'm scared to see a guru if they're picking things up that quick. But anyway, so this is a good place to go, as well as Power Automate community. And again, the community is amazing. If you have a question, or you're stuck, or you want to see some new things, that's a good place to be. Power Automate community. There's also one for PowerApps. So as you kind of work through the platforms, you can go ahead and you'll be able to find these communities. Now, Anthony said some pretty monumental in this conversation earlier. Oh, sorry. It was the fact of, Power Automate and PowerApps, if you do not have an environment, here's the community plan. They give you a plan that allows you to build as you need, gives you access to different connectors. And the biggest one for me was CDS, but now it's Dataverse, because Dataverse comes with a different license. And most people don't have those funds to put towards it. So a part of the community plan is the fact that they give you all these different connectors to work and data sources to work with. The only drawback is the fact that you can't share it. So if you build it, you have to export it and do some other things to bring it to different versions. But for the most part, it's going to give you the ability to build to your heart's content. And again, those things that you're going to find is going to be kind of odd or off-putting. Share those things, and someone will be there to help you. All right. So with that, that's kind of at the end of that. I really want to give you guys a good layout of what's available. So I'm going to share a different screen. And from there, I am going to share with you the actual Power Automate Studio. So 1 second as I traverse. Okay, got that there. Share. And we are, let's just try it here. I'm sorry. Okay, should be coming up soon. All righty. So this is a demo tenant that I spin up to do all my my talks. And right here we just kind of see a SharePoint, but I'm going to go into there we go. All right. So this is Power Automate. In this case right now I'm doing a demo, so they have me in the UK. But you can kind of tell where you are depending on looking at your URL. But to get to it is super simple. If you will go into say, if you look up Flow or Microsoft Flow, in my case it just kind of showed up. So I've used it a few times, but just get it to spin up. Usually if you haven't logged in, it gives you a nice little window with the nurse and there's a login screen, and you log in as usual. With your Microsoft login information. Once you get logged in, you'll see this screen here, and this screen is a wealth of knowledge here. The first thing I'll walk you guys through is just kind of how this thing is laid out. So if you're new to Power Apps, or I'm sorry, to Power Automate, we have these nice little templates. And so if you've never built anything, but you have an idea of what you want to build, you can kind of go through some of these templates. They also kind of show us some of those popular services that most users are building off of. And as you see right here, SharePoint is one of the biggest that people are building off of, and that's just because the way that some of the licenses are created, that SharePoint is included in most of those SKUs. So SharePoint is there, and as well as SharePoint is being used quite heavily. I know from my experience, SharePoint is the go-to data source to hold data. So SharePoint's a good one. Tons of amazing things that we can do here with Office 365 with email. Here's OneDrive, Twitter, Dropbox. So there's so many here. Now as of today, we have 414. That's so amazing because that's the Milwaukee area code. So we have 414 different services or connectors. So if we click into the connectors, we'll see that we have tons of connectors. I think there's almost anything you can think of, they support. Now, as you kind of scroll through, you'll see that there's premiums. And premiums are come with a different license. So we spoke of licensing earlier. There are two different licenses that you can use or purchase to take advantage of some of these connectors. So I just want to kind of scroll through, and also that's a new one. As Anthony mentioned earlier, was Teams. I mean, Teams is a big one. I think we're all excited about it because with SharePoint has its shortcomings, and one is the fact that SharePoint is not a relational database. We can make it relational, and Duke may talk about that, but that's kind of like down in the 200s, but 200 level conversations. But that is available. But with Dataverse, you get that information already a part of your Teams subscription. So it works inside of Teams, but it won't work outside of Teams. So you have to go ahead and purchase a different license for it. But we call those freemiums. So you have free, then you have premiums, and then you have freemiums. And so If you want to talk about freemiums, that is one of the freemiums that you get depending on your license SKU. Right. So kind of scroll through here and let you kind of see. There's so many things here that you can use. And the reason why they're not you have to pay for them is because an API is what's run on the back end, and so Microsoft has to keep up to date with the different vendors, and so they charge a fee for that, right? Okay, so as we move from here, if you connect to one of these connectors, you'll possibly you'll have a connection. And your connection is basically saying, hey, you now have access to connect to these data sources. So if I click on connect here, you kind of see that they're all available and they're showing. And if I need to use it in an app, I would just say, hey, click here and create the connection. In most cases, you'll see just a plain connect directly to the source. And also there's a data gateway. Now, if you've built any Power BI reports, you should know a bit about data gateway, so I won't talk much about that. But this is how that works. And all you just click the button. It's going to ask you for your information, and please don't ask me for my password because I don't. There it is, because I don't know. So this is basically what we've done is we've taken a connector and now we've added a connection to it. So now it's a connection, and now as we start to build our apps, we'll be able to see different things or be able to utilize that data. On this side here, we also have action items. So earlier, Anthony mentioned approvals. We can build some in-house approvals, and this is how you will interact with it. The beautiful thing about approvals and the beautiful thing about Power Automate itself is the fact of it has a mobile app. So when you look at it, it does allow you to become to automate some of those things, but you can also build a flow and use it as an application. So for instance, if you're going to be late for a meeting, you can build a flow that from your phone, you'll click the button for the flow, and you'll be able to put the information that you need to add to the email, click the button, and off that goes by using the connector. I'm sorry, using the trigger and using the actions. So if there's anything that you would decide to do, here is where we would see the approval sent and the approval history. So it's a good one. And then data business process flows are just something that's really used with it's used with model-driven apps. And there was a screen that Anthony showed that kind of talks to that. And then here's this is pretty important for us here. This is where we build our flows. There's different type of flows. There's a cloud flow, and basically this is a flow that's used for you. If you decide to share a flow, it's considered as a team flow. And if you build it inside of a cloud flow, it will transition from cloud flow to Teams flow. And here is the business process flow, and another new big one that people are talking about right now, and it's really amazing, is desktop flows or UI flows. And basically what that does is it copies your keystrokes, it copies your mouse. And so if you need to use it again, for instance, on legacy applications where you don't have anyone to go in and rebuild, you can build the screen capture type flow and run it over and over again, and use your legacy documents or your legacy systems. But if you don't know what you want to build or you haven't built anything, again, we have these different flows here. So that are already created. And if you just click in here, it's going to ask, so here's going to kind of give you a description of what's going on. So it's kind of like a cookbook, right? The recipe is already built, and for you to utilize, you just got to go in and put some. It's like a fast food meal. There it is. You just go back in, warm it up, and it's ready to go. So in this case right here, I'm just going to use my Outlook connector. I'm just going to use some Office 365 user information, and then it's going to use a notification. Basically, this is a way to send email. But if you ever go into one of these flows and you're kind of like wondering like what's going on and how to use it, if you go back to connectors and find the connector, click on it, I just want to give you documentation, as well as just want to show you some of these other things that are available to use inside of the app itself. I'm sorry, inside of the flow itself. So here's a bunch that really uses the Office 365 user. All right. So I'm going to take a step back. Again, there's so many templates that you can use just to get started. But in this case here, I'm going to go ahead and create a flow. So let's see, that's a good time. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead with this push, right? This right here. So as your boss email you, you can receive be notified. So let's click here. And we have that. And let's hide this. And create a flow. Like literally right now, I'm creating a flow. Waiting for it to do its thing. All right. So this is the inside of a flow. So if we created a flow by going the old way, by saying create, and I want to do let's do this flow here. Just automate. The one thing that every flow has two things. You can't have, without these two things, you can't have a flow. So it needs a trigger. So it needs to be able to wake up and do something. Something has to shake it awake. And that's a trigger. And then actions is whatever you do as you awoke. That's the action. So this is what we're going to do here. So in this case here, if I want to say for SharePoint, when an item is created, do something. So here, I just want to give it a quick name. Call this Duke's flow. Although it's not going to be its flow, but we'll give it a name. The one thing also about flows, and this is a bit of a best practice, is make sure you give it a meaningful name. In this case right now, I'm just saying it's Duke's flows because we're in a demo. But if we were doing something that had a different environment, environments is another conversation, but if you had a different environment, if it was a part of a certain SharePoint list, you just want to be able to name your flows so that when you come back to that flow, you know what it is, as well as anyone on your team knows what's going on with that flow. So I'm gonna click create. And so here, now we could have done anything. We could have done Excel. We could have done any of those connectors. All those connectors would have one trigger and a whole bunch of actions. So in this case, we just did the one trigger here. So when an item is created, I'm going to go to the SharePoint site that we're looking for. And let's see, do we have anything in here? Let's try this one. No. So anyway, so what should happen is in the environment, if you have access to that list, it should be available. So if I go back here, let's just let's see what we have. Site content. Do we have anything in here? So we only have libraries in this case. We do not have any lists. Well, we can fix that, right? So let's go back here. The ellipsis is your friend. Anywhere you see an ellipsis, click it. I'm just going to give you more information. In this case right now, the ellipsis will always give you the ability to rename those actions, as well as add comments. Please, please, please add comments. Although we're not classically trained or traditionally trained developers, we are developers. We need to leave artifacts behind for people to help them understand what we're doing. Or to help yourself. I build so many flows and I'll come back and I'm like, what? Why did I use this? Or what does this thing do? So I always leave myself comments. So you leave a comment there. If you want to delete it, you use this icon here. And the connections is let you know whose account is being used for this trigger or for this action. So in this case right now, I'm going to delete this one. Yeah, I wanted to go. And then I'm going to go back in here and say in SharePoint, let's go to also in triggers. So let's see when an item is created. There's a difference between item and a difference between using an item and using a file. And we can talk about that a little later. Actually, I need to put in file. Let's modify it. Let's go with this one. This is fine. There we go. There we go. So now all those SharePoint libraries that's located within this site, we now have access to them. So if you want to go with the shared documents or anything like that, you can go ahead and identify that. And now the fact that we're saying whenever a file is created in this folder, we need you to wake up and do some business. And so we started to do business. We can do almost anything you want to do. It doesn't have to be tied back to SharePoint. If you want to, you can tie it to Outlook. So when someone asks something new, you can go and say, well, let's send them an email. We will click here, and then we'll identify all these different types of actions we have at our disposal. So if that's the case, let's send an email to somebody. All right. The amazing thing about Power Automate is some of these things that we work with are kind of IntelliSense-like. So as you start to type in names, you'll see things kind of show up. So in this case here, we want to have a person's name. So I think there is an Alex in this environment, I believe. Let's see, how about Wilbur? Keep moving. All right, then let's go back and see who's in this environment. 25 members. Okay, let's see if Aaron will show up for us. There we go. So there's Aaron. If you had more people, we can do that. If you have someone who has an email that's not a part of your gal, you can go ahead and type the email in. Again, these little asterisks are something that that you need to, that is required. In this case, we want to say subject is new file. We can go ahead and do that. Now, as you see, as I kind of jump in here, you have this dynamic content, and then you have expressions. Dynamic content will allow you to have things that change. So if you want to use this flow over and over again, we can go in and say, well, no, each time it goes in, provide the file content inside of the header. Or if you want to do the same thing, we grab in the body. So if there's a certain sentence and there should be a file or something that should be included in that sentence, you can do it here. Now, for those who write HTML, no problem. There's a little toggle right here. So if you decide to write it so it's all tagged out, go ahead and tag it. If not, if you're not a person who writes HTML, you can go ahead and just write your regular email here and click your, always look for advanced options. There's always some good stuff underneath it. And from here, we can do more stuff. So now if you want to, we can do a send as, meaning that you want to, this email is going to go out to Aaron, but it's going to go as a different sender. It won't come from your name. If you want to do BCC or just CC, you got it there. Important thing is, some of these things, when you see a drop down, go in and answer it because it's going to automatically do one of something, and you just want to be the least restrictive. So in this case, we want to say our emails always go over as normal. That's a good thing to have. So once we have all that, now if we want to include any type of attachments, you can go back in here, find attachments. They'll be available. So that's what we will have here. So let's just say this is a test. All right, click my little period. If you want to do any type of, changing the fonts, there it is here. If you want to change sizes here. So very Word-like. If you're used to using Word or those different rich text or rich text boxes, works the same way. So I'm gonna go back to what we had. I think it was Arial, and definitely was not 10. Here we go. I can read it now. All right, so we have that. Now, again, as you want to learn or look at different things, best practices before we send anything out, use that ellipsis, give it a new name. So we'll say send email to If Aaron's going to be the same person we send it to all the time, we would add it here. Or we can go in and just add anybody's name. But just please add something here so that it's not just a regular old V2 or whatever the name that was provided with it. Then for add a comment, we can add a comment here. Something's kind of say, you know, this was a test. So we can add that here, click out, and now it's available. And same thing here. Want to add something here was new file. So these are things that you should do always. Just make sure that people know what's going on once it's finished. Or if you decide to share this, they can see it. So again, we can add as many new steps as we want to. If you want to have a condition, right? So let's say, let's go to an condition here. It's just a Boolean, a yes or no. So you can go in here and add in a condition. You can say, you know, if file content is equal to apples, which I don't think it'll be, but why not? Or bow ties, bow ties. Anyway, so if it equals that, if yes, then do something, right? Go in here and say another action. You know, so many actions here is ridiculous. We can go in and say, you know, I don't know, we can send a weather report to somebody in an email or something, but just make it very easy for yourself to use. We have, you know, the built-ins, we have standard, which comes with everything. And then again, we got our premium. So if you don't have a premium, you see that, or a little diamond, that means that it's going to cost you you got to pay to play. And then customs for if you build any custom connectors on your own. A fun thing to do is also just build, you can use the clipboard, and some actions here, you can go back in and say copy to my clipboard. If I go back to the clipboard, if I want to use this action again, I could use this action again as well. So it kind of shows it here, right? So those are some things that we'll have. And once you're finished doing your thing, click save. It'll save it. And then go back here to flows, and there's all your content. So now if you want to, just click, there's a play button, and your flow will run. There's so much more to talk about when it comes to running to just a one-on-one. A half an hour is just not enough time. We talked to Jermaine. If you want to come back and have us do another deep dive into apps or to Power Automate, definitely be on board with it. So hopefully you got an idea of what you can do as a one-on-one. And if you have any questions, I'll take a look at the comments board.
Awesome. Thanks, Anton. That was great. And I didn't think you would have done a live, created a live flow. So that's awesome. You actually got that done, which proves the point that it's pretty quick and simple and easy to do.
Really fast.
Exactly. All right. Well, I think you answered Denver's question already, and I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. So we'll pass the baton to Duke.
Yep.
And then if there are any questions, you can always just respond to them. So Duke, over to you.
Okay. Hey, so I don't have any slides prepared. I'm gonna go over a demo and just kind of walk you through. It's kind of funny how I have the demo set up. I'm kind of walking you through how I got started and how I ended up at Power Automate, then PowerApps. So I'll share my screen here. Is it doing? Oh. Okay, can you see this? Okay, there it is. All right, so I'm gonna show a SharePoint solution. Earlier, Anthony spoke about the different data sources, the different connectors, and Anton elaborated on it some as well. And so SharePoint, some people think of it different ways. How I got started was to set up the company intranet. And then the modern SharePoint, you can do that. You can create a communication site, which is what you see here, which would act as a central hub. And then you could create a team site. So it would be something like this right here where you would click on sales. So this would just be a team. And in here, you could create your document libraries. You can create your list. Here I have a couple of different lists. I'm going to show you how everything is going. Show you how the lists work. I'm going to show you one, but these are all different lists that are going to be pulled into the app that I'm going to show you after this. And so you would come in here, create a new list, library, page, post, link, plan, or an app. But we'll just go right here to order head. And so earlier, Anton spoke about SharePoint is not a relational database. So for those of you who've worked with relational databases before, so like SQL Server, Dataverse, or used to be CDS, that's a relational database as well. So if you're not going to use SharePoint as a data source, those are relational databases. And so all it would be is just, you create your list, you set up your columns like you would set up any regular database. Some of these columns are complex. Me, initially when I started, I learned a hard lesson about not understanding complex columns. It makes it harder for filtering if you don't understand them. And sometimes you may just want to work around them and just use standard text columns because it makes it a little bit easier for filtering and doing some computations inside of the Power App. And so how I got started with this was, like I said, I built the company intranet off of this, and then there was a need for an application to handle our capital authorization requests. My boss, he came from a different company where they worked with SharePoint. I've never worked with SharePoint. And I tell you, when they asked me to work with SharePoint, I initially got mad because I thought a SharePoint is just lists in a document library. And I'm like, you're going to pay me to do this? I mean, I'm the kind of guy that kind of wants to do a little bit more and learn as much as I can before I get out of here. So I was mad when he first proposed it to me. I had no idea how powerful SharePoint could be when coupled with the other features on the Power Platform. And so he was trying to build an automation the old way, from the way it used to run on SharePoint. I never worked with SharePoint in the past, so I'm not familiar how those workflows worked in there. But all I was tasked to do was just to set it up, find it for him, and it actually worked out for me because we couldn't do it that way. It just wasn't robust enough for the actual action that we wanted to do. And so I was just playing around in here one day. I was like, what is this automate stuff? And then saw, it was Flow before. It was called Flow before, but now it's Power Automate. And so ended up over here seeing all of the stuff that Anton showed you inside of here and started playing around a little bit. What they wanted was an approval flow, a serial approval flow. Power Automate can do all of that. It actually comes with a dashboard built in here. I don't know if it, where is it? Action items, I think it's here. So approvals. So I was going to set it up, do the serial approval, but then the business requirement changed to, we want a dashboard. And this wasn't robust enough. So then I'm like, how do I build a dashboard? I had no clue that PowerApps was sitting out there. So, but before I go over to PowerApps, I just want to show you what I'm doing here with the flow. Earlier, Anthony mentioned, well, there's a question about how many records, you could use with Excel. And yes, the baseline for PowerApps initially starting out, unless you reconfigure it, is 500 records. But if you reconfigure it, it's 2,000 records. It can handle with ease. Anthony suggested doing more stuff on the back end. And this is kind of the back end here where you can, if you look at this icon here, this is the PowerApps icon. If you scroll through, if I scroll through here, you'll see different icons. So there's forms. I'm doing different automation with forms, and this is going out to SharePoint, doing different stuff that Anton got into. So I'll open this. Now remember I showed you order head earlier. I named it in a way that I know what this flow is doing, like Anton said. Name it in a meaningful way. What is this flow doing? This flow is going out to order head and getting order head. What I mean by getting is just returning me records in order head. And so if I open this up here, you'll see all my flow runs. Luckily, all of those were successful. But it'll also show you if they error, and you can click on these and see why it does that. I mean, why it would error or why it was successful. But I'll just go in to edit it real quick. So this here is this is the trigger for PowerApps. when you go, I'll show you in PowerApps how it works. But when you start this here, it essentially talks to PowerApps and allows you to do different things. You can add different data inside of PowerApps and have it come back to the flow, or you can return data from the flow to the Power App. Here's a HTTP request. All this is using OData or the URI here and returning me all the records on order head. Now, because this list is small, I'm returning all the records. Normally, you don't want to do that. Anthony mentioned earlier that you want to filter as much as possible. To slow down, to return the records that you need. Don't return every record because you might not need every record. And it takes time to, go through and grab all those records. If you say, give me every record, not every record, every column that's in there. And you might not need all that data. It's just, so try to filter as much as you can. Here, if you're seeing this, it just says no metadata. I don't want any metadata back. I just want raw. I just want data. That's all I want. I don't want data about data. I want the data that I need to filter on to run my application. I've added comments here. So you see here, it says triggered by PowerApps. This comment says returning all items inside of order head. This one here is pushing data back to PowerApps. So once this runs, it comes down to this response. And it gives me the value that was here. So all the records. So however many records are inside that SharePoint list. I think SharePoint lists go out to maybe 3 million records max. I don't know if you guys would get into doing that, but that's how it does it. That's how many records it can hold. And then doing some stuff with JSON here, but it's not showing up. Well, here it is. So you're doing some stuff with JSON here. It's pulling only the columns that I asked for. So in here, you can actually specify which columns you want, even though I returned all of the columns here. You can still come down here and specify how many columns you actually want to bring in to the application. So if I go into, so then, like I said, this is kind of just me walking down memory lane of how I got started with this. So flow, the dashboard, the approval process in here wasn't enough. So then I had to go out to PowerApps and actually build a dashboard, a custom dashboard to suit the needs of the business scenario or the business case. And so I'll just walk you through. This is the PowerApps Studio. For those of you who work with Excel and are used to working with formulas, you can do a lot in here with formulas. You can do a lot in here with drag and drop features. Just by adding a data source and connecting a label or something like that, formatting however you want to format it and doing something with it. There's a lot in here. What I like about this is there, like was mentioned earlier, there's a space for everybody. The citizen developer, the pro dev, there's a space for everybody to get in here and do something. So don't, you have to think of yourself as a developer. Initially, when I started, because I come from a background of developing websites, I know small amounts of C#, small amounts of SQL, study a little bit of Ruby because I didn't know what I wanted to do. But this platform here has allowed me to, do the front end stuff where I'm developing, UIs, and then do a little bit of the back end stuff with doing some OData, with doing some formulas. To, I get the best of both of the worlds that I come from. So when you come in here, what I did was, in order to get a flow to return records to PowerApps, this is the way I know how to do it. I don't know if there's a different way, but you got to add an action. You got to create a button, and you got to add an action. See, if I click off, action goes away here. If I click on this button, action reappears. And what'll happen is you'll see Power Automate here. And every flow that you have built that, links to PowerApps, here goes the logo again. So every flow that was inside of Power Automate that links to PowerApps will return here. And so we'll see getting order head again. And what you would do, you would click on it and it would add it to the environment over here in your data sources. So in PowerApps, there's quite a few different data sources. So your connectors, those are your data sources, the custom connectors you create, the flows that you create, and then also collections. I like collections. Initially, when I started, I didn't know anything about collections, but as I've grown and done a lot more, I like messing with collections, because what it does is you bring all your data in and you could drop it into a collection. You can filter that data once you get it over into the actual collection. So you may not need a column, or you may want to add a column. There are scenarios, and I'll show you here, where you need to add a column to a collection just to get some formatting done, to make formulas work. Those scenarios are all needed, when you create a collection. And so what I'll do is I'll just show you this. I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with KPIs. For those of you are doing Power BI, the graphs, the pie charts, the line charts. So this was actually pretty interesting. I just built this to be building this for myself. I didn't really think too much in that. I'm talking to a Power BI group, and so here are KPIs. I was just building this to build it. And so what happens when we start here, I'll show you the formulas and how formulas work. So these might look similar to how you do formulas inside of Excel. I haven't done Excel formulas, so I can't speak too much to it, but I'm just doing some simple stuff. What I really want to touch on here is the flows that I'm bringing in, and I'm putting the flows into a collection. The collection, you should probably name it, something similar to whatever data sources that you're bringing in, but you can name a collection whatever you want to name it. So here we got getting order head. I just renamed it to my last name, Camel Case Order Head. And so once you push on start, and let's see something interesting here. I'll show you like this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna test the flow. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna perform the trigger action. I don't know if it'll do it. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Let me see. Put that load up. Okay, so I don't think it's gonna do it. But what will happen is, it ran on its own. But so there's some cases where once you click a button, it'll run the flow and you can see the flow run. But clicking on start will cause those flows to run. So all of these flows here will run, and it will drop all that information into my collection. Whatever I'm filtering on, or if I'm bringing in a whole table, as you saw on as you saw on getting order head. And then you could go in here and you could view the collection, and it will only return the first 5 records. So don't be upset if you're like, hey, it's not returning all my data. It's only going to return the first 5 records. You can create a data table or a gallery to view all those records if you want to do that. So on order head, it's returning those columns that I specified. And these are themes, and this is for formatting. This is where I added a row, and I'll show you how that works shortly. So when we come into here, this here is a gallery here. I'll show you once I click this button here. So let me just blow it up so we can see it all. And what happens is it returns all of the records that I had in order head. And with galleries, what you can do is you can actually specify the columns that you want to see, or the data that you want to see in the galleries too. Or anything that you're doing in PowerApps, in the Canvas app, I should say, not model driven. Model driven is based on the data model. Canvas apps, you can specify to look however you want it to look, whatever data you want to see, whatever columns you want to see, whatever formatting you want to do. So this is returning all of the records inside of order head. If the status is hold, it's going to show red. If it's complete, green. If it's WIP or work in progress, nothing's going to happen. It's just, hey, this is what it is, the dollar amount, the customer name, customer ID. And so the interesting thing that I did with this, when we get back to SharePoint is not a relational database, what I did is, if you click on these, I haven't set it up here, but I'll show you. Oh, sorry. Get out of there. It may or may not show up on the screen. That screen. So no, it's not going to show up on that screen. So I think I took it away. So what I did with these, there's order head, there's order detail. And what I did was I linked them all on customer ID. And so when I would click, that's how I created a relationship on my own. SQL Server or Dataverse will do that for you itself. Well, it has the capability of doing it for you itself if you specify it that way. But inside of the actual app, I created that relationship. So if I was to click on this here, it would show me every detail, every record detail for this particular customer and a dollar amount. In here, this KPI here, this pie chart, is it doing it? Okay. This is where I did the add columns thing, and I just added a column, filtered on it, and I did that so I could get the series, so I can make this explode the way that I wanted to, display the data in the way that I wanted to. The same thing with this line chart here. Added a column, did a group by, and I grouped it on status. And that's how we get the month over month with, what was in WIP, or how much money was in WIP at this particular time period, how much money was in held at this particular time period, and how much money was completed. So I guess, the thing that I try to get across with this is, when I started with PowerApps, when I started on the Power Platform, as I detailed earlier, I was initially mad. I was initially naive. I didn't know what it could do. I didn't realize how powerful it was. I didn't realize how quickly I could streamline a process, or how robust and diverse I could make something, that your traditional developer could do, but maybe not as fast. I've learned a lot over this time. I think that you guys would, if you go into this, you'll learn a lot. You'll learn a lot about business process. I've learned so much about different business processes by using the Power Platform. I don't know if I would have learned it so much if I would have stuck with my C# or the SQL. But in here, I've learned, simple stuff. What's the importance of WIP. What's important of all these different things. When I worked in the factory, I didn't know. I was on the back end. I didn't see this stuff. But when they put me in, when I got into the office, I got to see all this stuff, and I got more hands-on with it the more I touched the Power Platform. As I'm pretty sure you guys have when you're doing Power BI stuff, when you're creating these different reports, when you're trying to understand the ins and outs and the whys. There's what I would suggest too, like Anton said, is to build. For me, I end up getting my own SharePoint tenant, but there's different licensing that you could get to get started with this. Like, I have my own SharePoint tenant just because, things I want to do with outside interest in, contracting and freelancing. But I also have a community license, and then I have a developer license as well. So I can, do different things with that. Inside of my work environment, I built a sandbox so I can go in and test all these different features, different stuff that I'm doing. I'll show you this last app before I get out of here. I have a theory app, and it's going to look weird when you see it because, really only I know what's in there, or I know what it does. But I come inside of this application or anything that I'm doing and just build stuff. I just test wild theories that I have. Can this do this? Can this do that? One item that I wrote a blog post on was using a SharePoint list to create recurring dates. If you create a custom calendar off of SharePoint, there's no way to create recurring dates. But I was able to find that out by just playing in my theory app, playing around building something. And, and what I did with that, one of Anton's rules is, or one of the things that he goes by, I gave back to the community once I built that and found that out, because, somebody may need that down the road. They might build a custom calendar for whatever business case it is. And, that, what I learned could help them. And then you keep it going, you keep everything growing, and it makes the platform, what? I got to authenticate. Oh, God. Okay, there it is. I thought it was going to ask me to sign out. So it looks weird when you come in here. But this is what I do. This is how I learn more. I reach out to the community, all different types of stuff. So I would say that, the Power Platform is a nice tool to work with. It's one of many tools that you can work with to get your job done. But if you're really interested in it, I think it's great. I think you'll learn a lot, and I think you'll contribute a lot to the community. So I'll hand it back over to, who am I giving it back over to? I don't know. I'll hand it back over to the host. Have a good day.
Thanks, Duke. Thank you so much. All right. Thanks, guys. That was awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring everyone back in one by one. Anton, Anthony, Duke.
There it is.
That was great. That was awesome, guys. So I'm checking the I know that you guys were answering the questions in the comments. Really great presentations. I must say that was really good. I learned something. And you think you know, and then you learn something else. So that was really good. I know Denver had another question about Power Automate that I saw Anton and I saw Anthony, you guys both waiting on that. I don't know, Duke, if you want to weigh in. Denver says that he's new to Power Automate and he finds that referring or updating, actually put it up on screen, referring or updating a specific record in the SharePoint list isn't the most intuitive, especially when using Anton is.
I'm sorry. I love the app. Right? I love it. It's amazing. Wow.
And I find that referring. Oh, you're using multiple. So are you trying to create a relationship by using a multiple list inside of a flow? Because that's normally what I do. I'm trying to establish some type of relationship between the list. So it takes a little bit of fine tuning to accomplish what you're looking for, but it's definitely achievable. If you have some questions, you could reach out to one of us or email me personally or on Twitter or LinkedIn, and I can try to help you out with that a little bit more.
I think also we could the one thing that we could use is just lookups. So I put a link in where I show different REST APIs that you can use to look up. But those are some of the things that we kind of talked about earlier. We talk about the whole developer or the traditional developer, but you will need to learn REST API, OData. You may have to pull back some old school techniques that people have forgotten about that are really developer type things that you had to learn to make some of these things work. The beautiful thing about Power Automate is the fact that it gives you this amazing power, but at the same time, you have to learn how to harness the power. It's kind of like having a motorcycle. You got to learn how to ride that thing. So sometimes you have to reach back and do some things that are not traditionally out of your regular day to day. So definitely for that one, it is a lookup, and it's funky. But I can share. We can share with you, but I don't like it. Yeah. But you have to do it to make it work.
Hey, thanks, Craig.
Oh man, thanks, Craig.
Oh, that's my uncle.
Thank you, Uncle Craig.
What's up, man?
That's cool.
Thanks, Uncle. All right. So as I said, excellent presentations. I got kicked out a little bit there with my Wi-Fi. And I realize you guys have answered and weighed in on Denver's questions. So awesome. I don't know if there's any other tips or anything else that you guys want to leave with the community before we end our broadcast tonight.
I think it's one thing I just echo for myself. I think the fact of is build, like go build. I will tell you, I'm not ashamed to say that I've broken a lot of stuff. I've cried a few nights as well, but stick with it. This is an emerging technology. If you look at the Garners, they're telling you like right now is that we are at the baby stage right now. So jump in now, feet first. Do not have any care. Just jump in there. We're gonna save you. Like if you stuck, we are your lifeline. The community will take care of you. So go out there and be great.
Awesome, Anton. All right, Duke, Anthony.
I mean, yeah, kind of echoing what Anton's saying. I think we all kind of had the same sentiment. Is don't be afraid of it. You know, I've learned, you know, by breaking stuff. I've built something and I broke it. I saw a tweet a couple weeks ago from forget her name. Anton knows her name. She's built flows, and she had been I showed you inside of Flow where you can track your flows, and she finally got it correct. And then she went back and said, okay, now time to break it, just so she can keep up, so she can make sure she's doing the right thing. So she's building her skill set. You know, don't be afraid of the technology, and learn to enjoy the technology. Like Anton said, it's emerging. I didn't think it could be as powerful as it is. I didn't know anything about it. Like I said, I got mad when I was told this is what I would be doing. But now I see, you know, the benefits of it. And in a lot of cases, I didn't bring this up, but like I'm in a situation where I'm the only guy that's doing it in my organization. So you may be that person that's the only one. So you'll be the face of this. So if you are the face of it inside of your organization, try to drive this technology, because it's only as good as you make it.
Awesome.
Boom, mic drop.
Yeah, for real. Wow, you guys did great. I would just say start small, you know, give yourself some wins there. Like you can try to go in and create the biggest, baddest app ever out there. It takes a lot of time to go out and do those types of things. Just know that, you know, it takes time to do the small things too. And it is, you know, crawl, walk, run. So make sure that you're out there and you're looking at things, you know, because people are going to go out there and create things like Duke just showed. It's going to take a long time, you know, so like there are very advanced things that are out there, pro dev type things. But just make sure you start at a level that makes sense, so you don't lose, you know, focus, and you get those quick wins, and you continue on, and like you said, just keep training, keep your hands dirty, break things, and fix them. So, you know, keep going.
Awesome. All right, thanks guys. This was really great. I think we may, like we talked about, we may have to bring you guys back maybe for, you know, individual breakout sessions to just focus on Automate, focus on PowerApps, and focus on SharePoint and all of that. That actually may be something that we need. And you guys can let us know in the comments as well if that's something that you'd be interested in, to have much longer, like a 1 hour session just around PowerApps, or, you know, PowerApps in a day, or Power Automate in a day, or something like that. You guys can just let us know. So Denver is asking, when is the next one? So Denver, just follow us. Follow the Jamaica PowerBI User Group on LinkedIn, or, you know, join the community, and then you'll be updated when we'll have the next one in the new year. So we'll probably bring these guys back. I don't know if we'll be in person. I highly doubt that will be the case. So we'll probably still be online.
I'm on the next flight.
Oh yeah.
Hey, I had my best massage in Jamaica, and it made my wife mad.
Oh wow.
She encouraged me to get it, and she said, how did it feel? I said, if I still smoke cigarettes, I would have had one at the end. That didn't go over for the rest of our vacation there in Montego Bay.
Oh God.
Oh Lord, good to know.
Yeah,
Good to know. That's interesting. All right. So we'll let you guys know. Denver, just follow and follow on LinkedIn, so that you can know when the next event will be. And we'll keep you guys updated, and hopefully we can bring these guys back to have more, you know, breakout sessions, so you guys can keep learning. All right, it was great to have everyone. Bye, guys.
Thanks so much, Rocco.
Thank you again.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, Jermaine.
See you later, Jermaine.
Right.